Why do most people remain entangled in their suffering? Why do they wake each day with a weight they cannot name, a restlessness that cannot be stilled, and a longing that no possession, no success, no relationship ever fully satisfies? It is because they have forgotten who they are. It is because they have mistaken the fleeting for the eternal, the shadow for the light, the noise of the world for the quiet song of the soul. From the very moment we open our eyes as children, we are taught to grasp at things, names, titles, stories, ideas, even at ourselves. We learn that happiness comes from accumulation. We are praised when we win, celebrated when we gain, and forgotten when we fail. And in this confusion, we build a palace of illusions, craving, clinging, comparing, all of which rests on trembling ground. But the Buddha, in his boundless compassion, saw this. He saw the endless cycle, the samsara of desire, suffering and rebirth. He did not teach to impose belief, but to free the heart and mind. He did not demand worship, but invited inquiry, mindfulness and awakening. He spoke to the heart of our misery, tanha, thirst, the craving not only for pleasures and possessions, but for permanence in an impermanent world. And he offered a path, not to suppress our nature, but to understand it fully, not to reject life, but to see it clearly, to live it wisely, to hold it lightly. So I speak to you now, not as a preacher, but as a mirror, as one voice reflecting another, as one moment inviting the next. I speak the words, not of command, but of remembrance, of ancient truths that live in every breath, in every silence, in every tear and smile you've ever known. There is a reason most people remain miserable, and it is not because life is cruel, but because we have not yet learned how to see, because we have not yet dared to sit with our suffering and ask, what are you here to teach me? Because we have not yet looked at our thoughts and questioned, are you true, or are you simply familiar? Because we have not yet dared to die to who we think we are, so that we may be born into who we truly are. Let us begin not with answers, but with stillness. Let us begin by stepping back from the noise and listening deeply, tenderly, to the whisper beneath our pain. This is not a sermon. This is a journey, a remembering, a letting go. And we begin, as all paths begin, with the mind. You see, thought is a wonderful servant, but a dangerous master. Most people suffer not because of their circumstances, but because of the story their mind tells about those circumstances. The mind clings to the past like a ghost, always replaying what cannot be undone. Or it races toward the future, conjuring fears that have not yet happened. Rarely is it here now, in this breath, this heartbeat, this sacred moment. When we begin to watch the mind, not judge, not fight, not suppress, but simply observe, we discover a miracle. The thoughts that once ruled us begin to lose their grip. The storm begins to pass, the waves still crash, but we are no longer drowning. We are watching from the shore. This is the beginning of freedom. The Buddha taught, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. If we believe we are unworthy, the world reflects that back. If we believe life is war, we meet every face as an enemy. But if we cultivate thoughts of compassion, presence, patience, we begin to see that our mind is not a prison, but a field, and in that field, we may sow peace, joy, clarity. But be warned, the mind resists. It is cunning, restless, full of habits so old we mistake them for identity. So, how do we begin to tame it? Not through violence or suppression, but through mindfulness. Mindfulness is not a technique, it is a way of being. It is the art of remembering to return. Return to this breath, return to this step, return to this sip of tea, this touch of wind on your cheek. this heartbeat echoing in your ribs. It is not dramatic, it is not exotic, it is astonishingly simple, and yet it changes everything. Because when we are mindful, we are no longer reacting, we are responding. We are no longer ruled by the unconscious patterns of fear and greed. We are dancing with them, seeing through them, liberating ourselves in the very moment they arise. And then from mindfulness arises another gift: right view. To see clearly is to end confusion. To see clearly is to stop projecting our fears and desires onto the world, and instead meet it as it is, fresh, alive, unrepeatable. Right view is not just intellectual knowledge, it is deep, embodied seeing. Seeing that all things are impermanent, that all beings seek happiness, even in their clumsy and broken ways, that suffering arises from grasping, and peace arises from letting go. With right view, the enemy becomes the teacher, the obstacle becomes the path, the suffering becomes the seed of awakening. And when we see this, when we truly see this, not with the eyes of the flesh, but with the eye of wisdom, then we begin to trust, not in dogma, not in authority, but in the unfolding of life itself. We trust that the rain falls for a reason, that the flower blooms in its own time, that the wound, though painful, is part of the healing. This trust is not passive, it is not lazy, it is a fierce, courageous surrender, a letting go that is not defeat, but liberation. Because when we trust life, when we trust the Dharma, we stop grasping, we stop fighting, we begin to walk gently, steadily, in harmony with the way things are. And from this trust arises purpose. A life lived with awareness, with clarity, with presence, cannot help but discover its purpose, not as a goal to chase, but as a light that naturally shines. The Buddha did not become enlightened to escape the world. He returned with compassion, with presence, with unshakable peace, to serve it. And so must we. You are not here merely to survive. You are not here merely to consume, compete, or comply. You are here to awaken, to see, to serve, to embody truth. Not in grand gestures, but in the way you listen, the way you breathe, the way you meet each moment with a heart wide open. And yet, even with clarity, even with a sense of purpose awakening within us like dawn rising over a quiet valley, the path is not always smooth. The world still moves with storms. The heart still trembles. Doubt, fear, anger, they visit us still, like old companions knocking at the door. This is where discipline enters, not as punishment, but as devotion. Discipline is not about rigidity. It is not the cold enforcement of rules, nor the mechanical repetition of rituals. True discipline is born from love. Love for truth, love for peace, love for the unfolding mystery of life. To live a disciplined life is to live with intention. It is to choose again and again what matters most, even when it is inconvenient, even when it is difficult. It is to return to the breath when the mind wants to wander, to offer compassion when the ego wants to defend, to sit in silence when the world demands noise. Discipline is the practice of remembrance, remembering who you are beneath the chaos, remembering your vow to live awake, to live kind, to live. The Buddha himself walked barefoot for years, ate one meal a day, slept little, sat long hours beneath the Bodhi tree, not to prove his worth, but to stay close to the truth. Every moment of discipline was a moment of love, a moment of dedication to the path of freedom. And when we walk that path, even falteringly, something changes. We begin to act, not from impulse, but from wisdom. This is the power of right action, to live in such a way that our deeds become a blessing, to ourselves, to others, to all beings. Right action is not confined to commandments or commandments carved in stone. It is the quiet integrity of a life aligned with truth. It is the refusal to harm, the willingness to help, the courage to be kind, even when it is not returned. It is the way we speak, words that heal rather than wound, words that unite rather than divide. It is the way we consume, choosing not to feed greed and exploitation, but to nourish life and simplicity. It is the way we touch the earth, gently, mindfully, as a guest in a sacred home. Right action is how we make the invisible visible. It is how love takes form. It is how compassion becomes concrete. It is how awakening becomes lived. And in living this way, something else awakens in us, something often overlooked, yet profoundly transformative: gratitude. Gratitude is not a shallow positivity. It is not the forced smile or the denial of pain. True gratitude is fierce. It is radical. It is the ability to bow before life as it is, not only when it is sweet, but also when it is bitter. Gratitude does not mean we want suffering. It means we understand that even suffering has its place, its gift, its teaching. The Buddha said, "Let us rise up and be thankful, for if we didn't learn a lot today, at least we learned a little. If we didn't learn a little, at least we didn't get sick. And if we got sick, at least we didn't die. So let us all be thankful." Gratitude is what softens the heart. It is what keeps us from hardening in our pain. It is what reminds us that every moment, even the hardest, is alive, is breathing, is part of this vast and sacred dance. And when we live in gratitude, we begin to adapt, not from fear but from openness. Life will not go as planned. It never has. It never will. The seasons change. The body ages. Relationships shift. Dreams dissolve. But the awakened one does not resist change. The awakened one rides its waves. Adaptability is the art of surrendering with grace. It is knowing when to let go and when to hold on, when to speak and when to be silent, when to move forward and when to rest. It is a dance with impermanence, not a clinging to what was, but a celebration of what is. Like water, the wise one flows around obstacles, beneath closed doors, through narrow cracks, always finding a way, always remaining true to their essence. And when we live with such flexibility, such openness, such resilience, we find that even pain cannot defeat us, because we have discovered the jewel within suffering: resilience. Resilience is not resistance. It is not the gritting of teeth or the armoring of the heart. True resilience is softness. It is the ability to bend without breaking, to bleed without closing, to fall without forgetting the way back to your feet. The Buddha knew suffering. He did not avoid it. He walked into it, sat with it, listened to it, and in doing so, found the door out. And so can we. Not by avoiding pain, but by understanding it. Not by numbing, but by awakening. Not by escaping, but by opening. Again and again and again. And from this opening arises the deepest power of all. The power to learn. The truly wise are never finished. They are never done growing. They are never done being humbled, being astonished, being undone and remade by the living truth. The Buddha himself said, "I teach only two things, suffering and the end of suffering." But to truly understand this, not in the mind but in the marrow, we must become students forever, students of our breath, students of the present, students of love. Every moment, a teacher. Every silence, a lesson. Every encounter, a reflection. When we live this way, when we stop striving to be certain and start striving to be aware, we become like the tree that bends in the storm. We become like the lotus, rooted in the mud, rising toward the light. We become free, not because life stops hurting, but because it no longer defines us. We become awake, not because the world is perfect, but because we have seen through its illusions. And now, beloved listener, The path calls you, not as an obligation, not as a command, but as an invitation, a remembering, a return. Return to yourself, return to presence, return to the truth that suffering is not your enemy, but your teacher, your compass, your liberation, waiting to be seen. But to return, truly return, is not a single act. It is a lifetime. It is every breath. It is every morning you rise, every evening you sit in silence, every time you meet the moment without resistance. And yet the world pulls you in another direction, doesn't it? It beckons with distractions dressed as desires. It whispers that you are not enough unless you have more. It tells you that peace is out there, in the next job, the next lover, the next vacation, the next version of yourself that you haven't quite become yet. This is the great lie. Peace is not something you chase. Peace is what you discover when you stop running. It is the space that remains when you no longer clutter your soul with the noise of craving. To stop chasing is terrifying for most, because we have been taught to define ourselves by motion, by achievement, by constant becoming. But the Buddha taught that cessation, the ending of craving, is not emptiness, it is fullness. It is the heart finally coming home to itself. Imagine for a moment the stillness of a mountain, the quiet strength of a tree, the radiant calm of a moonlit lake. None of these things strive, and yet they are complete. You too are already whole. You too carry within you the same silence, the same spaciousness, the same vast presence, untouched by time, untouched by sorrow. But to see this, you must be willing to stop. You must be willing to look directly into your suffering, not to fix it, not to flee it, but to feel it, to touch it with gentle awareness, to say to it, I see you, I hear you, teach me. For it is only through such radical intimacy that wisdom is born. And wisdom, dear listener, is not intelligence. It is not cleverness. It is not knowing more facts or mastering more doctrines. Wisdom is the clear seeing of what is. It is seeing that the body will age and loving it anyway. It is seeing that people will disappoint you and forgiving them anyway. It is seeing that the world is impermanent and dancing with it anyway. Wisdom is tenderness without illusion. It is courage without aggression. It is love without possession, and it begins the moment you stop needing life to be other than it is. Do not be fooled by the mind's insistence that enlightenment is a destination. It is not. It is not a prize to be won, a badge to be earned, or a mountain peak to be reached. It is this very step, this very breath, this very sound of your heart, echoing in your chest. And yet the path does deepen. There are valleys, there are shadows, there are moments when it seems all is lost, when the world grows cold and the silence feels unbearable and you doubt everything, even the light within yourself. This is not failure. This is not punishment. This is the dark night that always precedes the dawn. Because it is in these moments when the outer supports collapse, when the old narratives dissolve, when nothing familiar remains, that the truth finally has space to rise. This is the sacred void, the fertile ground of transformation, the death of the false self that makes way for the birth of the true. Do not run from it. Sit in it, trust it, and let it strip away all that is not real. Let it take your masks. Let it burn your illusion. Let it pierce your pride. And you will emerge not broken but whole, not defeated, but awakened. And in this awakening you will no longer ask, what do I get from life? You will ask, what can I give to life? This is the final turning of the path, from self-concern to selfless service, from the question of how do I fix myself to how may I be of help. not out of guilt, not out of duty, but out of love, so vast, so unconditional, that it cannot help but flow outward. The awakened heart does not seek to escape the world. It seeks to bless it, with presence, with patience, with the simple, luminous offering of being fully here. This is what it means to live the Dharma, not to hide in temples, not to memorize scriptures, but to be the stillness in the storm, to be the calm in the chaos, to be the lamp in the dark, to listen with your whole body, to speak with kindness, to walk with reverence, to hold space for another's pain without flinching or fixing, and to trust that this ordinary, messy, magnificent life is the very ground of your awakening. Do not wait for silence. Bring silence into the noise. Do not wait for peace. Bring peace into the conflict. Do not wait to be perfect. Begin now, exactly as you are, for this moment is not an obstacle. It is the gate, and your life, in all its flaws and miracles, is not a mistake. It is a sutra, unfolding, a teaching in motion, a prayer written in breath and blood and being. Let it speak, let it guide you, let it bless the world through you. And as you continue walking this sacred path, sometimes with ease, sometimes with trembling feet, you will begin to feel a shift, not in the world outside, but in the space within. There is a growing quiet, not born of absence, but of presence. There is a new way of seeing, not through the eyes of fear, but through the eyes of compassion. This is not the result of mastering life. It is the fruit of surrendering to it. The truth is, life was never meant to be controlled, no matter how carefully you plan, no matter how many goals you set, no matter how strong your will. The river flows as it flows. It bends without warning. It carves canyons over centuries. It changes form, evaporates, rains again. Your suffering arises when you try to hold it still, to shape it in your image, to demand that it never leave you, never change, never die. But when you let the river flow, when you float rather than fight, you discover a peace that does not depend on circumstances. You discover a joy that is not loud but steady. You discover a love that is not grasping but giving. You discover that you are not a fixed self, not a story, not even a soul, but a flowing, breathing, interdependent process, always becoming, always dissolving, always part of something infinitely larger. This is what the Buddha meant when he spoke of anatta, not self. He was not saying that you do not exist. He was saying that the you cling to, the ego, the identity, the story, is not fixed, not permanent, not ultimately real. And to cling to what is not real is the root of suffering. But to release it, to live without the tight grip of me and mine, is liberation. The ego fears this. It says, if I let go, I will be nothing. But the truth is, when you let go, you become everything. You become the mountain and the rain, the silence and the song, the tears in a stranger's eyes and the wind moving through the trees. You belong. You always did. And from this place of belonging, not as an outsider looking in, but as life itself, you begin to touch the deepest teaching of all, into being. Thich Nhat Hanh called it into being, the understanding that nothing exists independently, that a cloud is in a piece of paper, that the sunshine is in the apple, that your joy is not separate from the suffering of others. There is no self without other, no breath without trees, no healing without community. We are woven into one vast, luminous web, not metaphorically but literally, spiritually, energetically. And when you see this, not as a concept, but as a lived reality, something extraordinary happens. Compassion ceases to be an effort. It becomes your nature. You no longer help others because you should. You help them because they are you. Their hunger is your hunger. Their fear is your fear. Their liberation is your liberation. And so your heart begins to open in ways you never imagined possible. You begin to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you no longer wish to carry the weight. You begin to love, not because it's safe, but because it's true. You begin to listen, really listen, not just to respond, not just to agree or disagree, but to understand. And from this open-hearted presence, your life becomes a refuge, not only for yourself, but for all beings you touch. Your smile becomes a teaching. Your silence becomes a balm. Your footsteps become prayers, and the ordinary becomes holy. This is not an escape from suffering. It is the transmutation of it. This is not the end of pain. It is the end of bondage to pain. You still feel, you still grieve, you still stumble, but now your suffering has a home. It has context. It has space. It no longer defines you. It refines you. It deepens you. And so you keep walking, not towards some final goal, but as a continual unfolding. And with each step you begin to see, the world is not broken. It is aching. It is not cruel. It is confused. It is not beyond saving. It is waiting, waiting for you to wake up, to see, to respond, not with fear, not with force, but with presence, with grace, with the unshakable knowing that even in the darkest places, the light has not gone out. It is simply waiting for someone to open their eyes, their heart, their hands. And so, you live not to escape the fire, but to become its warmth, not to avoid the storm, but to be the shelter, not to preach from a mountaintop, but to kneel beside the suffering and say, I see, I am here. We walk this path together. This is what it means to live awake, not to shine above others, but to be so rooted, so grounded, so true that your presence becomes a lighthouse, a safe harbor, a seed of awakening in others. And when the world grows dark, and the night feels endless, and doubt returns like a shadow, you do not run. You sit, you breathe, you remember. You remember that the lotus blooms from the mud, that the fireflies appear only in the night, that even the moon waxes and wanes, yet never ceases to shine. You remember that your practice is not to escape life, but to embrace it fully, with courage, with tenderness, with the unshakable resolve to keep showing up, to keep bowing, to keep loving, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. And now, as we reach the edge of this long path of remembrance, something ancient stirs in you, not a conclusion, but a return, not an answer, but a quiet knowing, not a finish line, but a homecoming. For you are not the seeker anymore, you are the one who has seen, the one who understands that misery does not arise because life is cruel, but because we have been asleep. The one who no longer blames the world for its shadows, but lights a lamp and holds it high. The one who has discovered that suffering is not the enemy, but the messenger, that every pain, every loss, every broken moment was calling you back, not to shame, not to despair, but to the luminous truth buried beneath it all. You are already whole. You are already enough. And the prison door was never locked. So now, beloved soul, what will you do? What will you do with this heart that has been cracked open, not by violence, but by love? What will you do with this breath that was once forgotten and now returns like a gift? What will you do with this life, this brief, astonishing, radiant life that you almost missed while chasing ghosts? The answer is not found in books. It is not given by teachers. It is not whispered by gods. It is born in silence. It is revealed in the pause between thoughts. It is uncovered in the tears you no longer hide, the laughter that arises without permission, the awe you feel when the wind brushes your cheek and reminds you you are alive. So live, not perfectly, not always peacefully, but authentically. Live not to impress, but to express, not to prove, but to share, not to climb, but to root. Live as if each step is sacred, because it is. Live as if your presence matters, because it does. Live as if your kindness could change the world, because it will. Let your life be a Dharma talk. Let your breath be a bell. Let your presence be a temple, where others feel safe to remember who they are. You do not need to be holy. You only need to be here. You do not need to be fearless. You only need to be honest. You do not need to have it all together. You only need to keep showing up, again and again and again, with a heart that is willing to break open in service to something greater than itself. And in doing so, you will touch eternity, not as a distant realm, but as the sacredness of this moment, the one you're in now, listening, breathing, feeling. This moment is enough. This moment is the teacher. This moment is the gate. And you, just as you are the Buddha waiting to awaken. So bow to the path, bow to the pain, bow to the silence, bow to the mystery that pulses through all things. And when you rise, rise gently, rise slowly, rise like the sun over the horizon, not to conquer, but to illuminate, and walk forward not as one who knows, but as one who sees. And may every step be your prayer, may every breath be your offering, may every moment be your freedom. The time has come, not to escape this world, but to embrace it, not to become someone else, but to return to who you truly are. The awakened heart, the clear mind, the loving presence, the unshakable truth. You are not lost. You were never lost. You were simply remembering, and now you are home. Sleep well, dear soul. Sleep with peace in your chest, with wisdom in your breath, with compassion in your bones. For the Buddha is not a statue, not a name, not a myth. The Buddha is what you become when you choose love over fear, presence over distraction, surrender over control. So rest now. The way is open, and you are free.